It was the OPG. It was the first year they did the OP Junior. In 1989, I was 17. I think you were 16. We get out there and we look back at the beach, and there's like 20,000 people plus at Huntington, super packed Huntington. And Rob's like, "Did you look at the beach?" I'm like, "Yeah, I did." He's like, "Don't look back there." he's like, "Oh my God, I've never been so nervous in my life." And to be honest, we both surfed a really bad heat. We both, neither of us could surf. My legs were literally shaking, and I was so nervous and so, like, I so badly wanted to surf good because all my heroes were there and stuff, but I was so nervous in front of this crowd, and like, I won the contest, but I sure didn't put on any kind of show, and I think maybe I was just slightly sort of like that, much less nervous than Rob or something.
I could barely stand up.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was only 6 years later that we had this heated pipe, and, I mean, that seemed like a long time back then. You're
6
talking about,
years, yeah.
You're talking about 20 years now. There's been 20 years. It really seems like, I know it wasn't eons ago, but it really doesn't seem that long ago, you know?
Yeah. I can't remember at the beginning of that heat. I remember we did it in a later heat.
Rock, paper, scissors?
Rock, paper, scissors?
Yeah.
We did. Did we do it?
Yeah, we did it. We did it. I just don't remember which of us won it.
I can't remember. It was always irrelevant, but we did it anyway. Because there's a thing, you know, man-on-man heats, and they still do it to this day. Nobody has priority when the heat starts, right? So it's like you could kind of hassle each other, I guess. And we're like, we don't want to hassle each other. Like, we're friends. Let's just get this out of the way. So we do rock, paper, scissors, and then that person gets priority. And sometimes that could be detrimental, but we did it, and I don't know. I don't remember the outcome, if it's even relevant, but...
I don't remember, but what was clear in that heat was I was 90% going right, and Rob was 100% going left. And I like my occasional left out there. But
that's still true to this day.
Yeah. I mean, this morning I was yelling at Rob to go right on one, and he still didn't go right. No one else was paddling for the thing. But
the left was way better.
But I'll jump ahead to a heat in a few years later. 3 or 5 years later, Rob and I had out there, and I begged him to go right, and finally this wave came, and there was no left on it. He went right and got a 10. So Rob's 100% on the right in contest. He has one right, I think, to his name at Pipeline, at Backdoor, and he has a 10-point ride.
I just remember, like, I see you, like, I see this look in his eye when something really good's about to happen.
Yeah.
And I was like, gosh, I hate going right. And this wave came in. I'm like, dang, another right. And I turned and I looked at him, and he was like, he's like just looking at me like, don't go. And I went, and that was the last time I went right in a contest. So,
any contest?
Thanks for that wave. You coached me into it, basically. I looked at him like, wow, this must be a good wave because he's freaking out. But do you remember, we also had a heat too, pretty substantial heat. 98. Yeah. Kelly was going for a world title. He was going against Mick Campbell and Danny Wills. Yeah. And it was a quarterfinal heat. The waves were really good then too.
I had to win actually only that heat to win the title at that point.
It was, and we both hang out in the same yard, by the way. So,
were we staying at the same house that year?
Maybe.
A little house there on the beach.
And we have all our boards in the yard and all of our friends, and here comes this heat. You know, there's two Australians that are going for a world title that they were pretty vocal about not liking Americans, don't you think? Not in a bad way.
They were very vocal about bringing the title back to Australia and to just sort of like push any of the other feelings aside. I mean, I was friends with Wilsey and Mick, but they definitely were like, it was national pride to bring the trophy home.
Very proud, yes. And so here I am. If Kelly beats me in this heat, he wins the world title. If I beat him, an Australian wins the world title.
Like Rob and I mean, I stayed at his house. We traveled on tour for years. We had the same manager. Like, our lives were intertwined. And Mick and Danny Wills were basically that same way in Australia. Like, these two guys traveled together. They trained together. They lived together. They pushed each other this year. And they went from basically sort of middle-range guys on tour up till 97 to, leading coming into Pipeline. So it was a very, for me, it was very important at the time. But Rob and I were, well, I'll let you get your version out first, and then I'll give you the version I remember you telling me too, which is probably the same. But
yeah, I remember I called my dad, and I'm like, what do I do? Like, do I just paddle out and like sit in the channel and like watch and let him win the heat? I mean, like, I don't want like these other guys to take the title. I'd rather have Kelly win the title, And he's like, nah, definitely not. Like, he's like, you got to go out, surf your heart out, make him beat you, and then he'll feel better about his world title. I mean, you don't want someone to lay down for you is really and I thought, okay, cool. Yeah. And we did. We battled it out, and he won the world title. Did you win the contest that year too?
No, I got third. I lost to Jake Patterson, who beat Bruce with like 5 seconds left in the final. But yeah, that's what I remember. My memory was that you go, well, right for the heat. I mean, I didn't want to. It's a tough predicament because you're going for this thing, and you're like, your friend could roll over for you, and I was like, what's going to happen here? I would feel like shit, but it would make it so easy and so obvious, and like all our friends were there, they would all like forgive you, They wouldn't be like, you rolled over, bro. They were like, yeah. So, and I mean, honestly, I'm pretty sure, I don't know, you'd have to take it man for man, but like, if it was two Aussies or it was two Brazilians, I think there might be a few waves missed by the other guy. And Rob, and I like to think there wouldn't be, but sometimes you just gotta help your brother out, But Rob looked at me before the heat, and he's like, I remember he was real like kind of tense and nervous in an hour or two leading up to it, and then right before the heat, he goes, I called home, and he like looked much more relaxed, and I thought you had spoken to your brother, but I go, well, what did he say? And he goes, he said to kick your ass. And I was like, let's go, man.
All right.
And that was always fair at that point, because I mean, this was obviously 3 years later, and Rob probably owed me one, so there was going to be, this. Well, I mean, look, it was you got to beat the right guys to win the world title, And I thought it was the fairest thing for Rob to say that to me. I think it kind of put me back into. I didn't want to go out there wondering. I didn't want to go out there like expecting something, or I just knew, well, I got to go out there and put my best on,
Right.
And so if I do win, it was when I won that one, it was a celebration for us both, And so it was the one. I mean, going back to '95, it was a very tough win. Like I think it was the least. It was a strange feeling because Sonny and Rob were my best friends on tour, basically, and so to win that was so bittersweet for me. It's really tough to see my two friends have to be the guys to lose to me. It was a lot easier when it was two Australian guys, So, but I mean, I was still friends with Wilsey and Mick, and I talked to their families on the beach after. And, their dads both came. I was especially close with Danny Will's dad. I had done a couple surf trips with him in the past. And after that, after he had lost and I had won the contest, he came up and gave me a big hug. He's like, congratulations. It was all professional. And that's a thing that's tough. It's a small tour. We're trying to like leave it in the water and do our thing.